If you've spent any time watching anime, you've undoubtedly come across a scene where somebody is cooking up what appears to be an incredibly rich and hearty stew that brings immeasurable joy to whomever it's served. Well, I know how to make it, and on this episode of From What I Gather, I'll show you how to make this delicious Japanese venison curry that everyone's gonna love. So let's get started. Let's take a look at the ingredients, and I'm starting with a couple of pounds of venison today. But of course you could use beef, or lamb, or moose, or goose, or bear, or elk, or whatever protein you want to put in there. Or you can leave it out entirely and go vegetarian. And any way you do it, it's gonna be delicious. I've also got 2 pounds of potatoes, a couple of medium onions, I'm gonna be using about a pound of carrots, and of course, the curry, and this you can get in several different brands and different levels of heat. I'm going to be using this one today, and for this box of curry, I'll use all these vegetables and 5 cups of water or broth. But if you're going to use the broth, use the low sodium broth because this does have salt in it, and if you use the regular broth, you do run a risk of making this too salty. So, these are the basics, but once you've made this, you can add in all kinds of different veggies. I like to add in frozen green peas and red bell pepper, maybe some celery. You can get really creative with your meat and veggie combinations here. So the first thing I'm going to do is to trim all the silver skin off of my venison and then cut it up into some nice cubes. If you process your own game, you've definitely done this before, so just gonna trim off that silver skin. Some of the lighter stuff's okay to leave on there, but the really white stuff, you want to really get rid of that stuff because it's gonna be real chewy. Now I'll take my trimmed up venison and cut this into some nice cubes, and you really decide what size you want your cubes to be. I like them fairly chunky, but still kind of bite-sized, so not bad. Maybe 3/4 by 3/4 inch kind of cube. But again, you decide how you want yours. Now I've got nice peeled potatoes and carrots, and I'm going to cut those into kind of similar size pieces as the meat, maybe just a hair bigger. I like a nice chunky stew here. Now I always spend a bit too much time thinking about what shape I want to cut my carrots into, so today I believe I'll just go with some half rounds. And I want to cut those into kind of a little bit smaller than the meat size half rounds. But there's definitely going to be some variation here, which is just fine. This is a rustic stew. Now this is a pretty onion heavy dish, but there's no reason you gotta go that heavy if you don't like them. So, use 1 or 2 medium onions in this. I'm gonna cut those kind of big, so just maybe once down the middle. There, kind of chunky onion. All right. I think we're just about ready to start cooking. Now I'll get my well-worn Dutch oven heated up with a couple of tablespoons of cooking oil to sear the meat. And once this gets nice and shimmery and a little smoky, I'll throw the meat in there. Well, I'm going to do half of it at a time so it gets a nice sear on it. Searing the meat is optional. It does add another little depth of flavor and texture, but if you just want to throw everything together and start boiling it, you can do that. You can put it all in the crock pot as well. Alright, we got a little bit of smoke coming off that oil, so it's time to start searing the meat. Like I said, I'm going to do it in 2 batches so I don't crowd the pan too much. And you hit that with just a little bit of salt. Not too much, because like I said, there's a lot of seasoning in the curry. There we go. That's the color we're looking for. Now that I've got good color in the second batch, I'll just put the first batch back in and bring in the onions. We'll give these onions a little head start. So we'll saute the meat and the onions together for 5 minutes or so until the onions just start to soften up a little bit. Alright, my onions are getting soft, and now it's time to add in the liquid. You could use water, but I'm going to use the low sodium beef broth, and I'm going to add in 3 of these. I think they're 14.5 ounce cans, which is going to be a little more than 5 cups, but close enough. Now as this is heating up, I'm going to put the curry in. And these are pretty handy. These come in a little 2-pack. You use them both for a big family-sized batch like this, or you can break them apart and one stays sealed, and you can keep that for another smaller batch. But quite frankly, I always do the family-sized batch because this stuff gets better the next day and then the day after that. So we'll get the one in, and it's also in these small bricks. And this contains the seasoning as well as the thickener, which is very handy. So as this is heating up, it'll get thicker and thicker while this dissolves until it's all boiling hot. Now the curry is dissolved and it's starting to thicken up, but I won't know exactly how thick it's going to be until this actually boils. There we go, we're just starting to boil, and now that's nice and thick, like a nice gravy. Oh, it's time to get in our carrots and potatoes. Hopefully they all fit in this pan. Whew, just. Alright. So now we're gonna bring this up to a boil, reduce the heat down to a simmer and cover it, and we'll simmer that for 30 minutes to an hour until everything gets nice and tender. Alright, this is getting pretty close to done. And now I am going to go ahead and throw in about a cup of frozen peas just because I really like them in there. And I'll just let that come to temp. Those don't need to cook very long, just a few minutes, and this will be ready to go. How we did. I like mine spicy, so I'm gonna sprinkle some of this hot chili flake on there. Oh yeah, that's gonna pick it up a bit. Alright, now, need some of that rice. Definitely want some venison. Ooh-wee! Check out that bite. That really takes me back. Growing up, this was a staple around our house, and I still make it 5 or 6 times a year. Just imagine the best stew you've ever made, and then you just get in there and flavor blast it to another level with that curry. It's absolutely wonderful. And it's a great way to introduce people to eating wild game, because that curry just works perfectly with the game. It doesn't cover up the flavor of the game, it just works perfectly and complements it and makes one incredible flavor that everyone's gonna love. And if you really want to impress your buddies at camp, Just throw a box of this into your pack and take your camp stew to the next level. Well, I really hope you try this, and I know you're gonna love it. Thanks for watching. And these are nice and handy. They come in kind of a 2-pack. You use them both for a big family-sized batch like this, or one son of a dink